A small girl adopts a strange puppy, unaware it's not a dog. She thinks she's rescued a helpless creature from a cold alley, but what she's brought home is far more powerful and far more dangerous. It doesn't bark. It doesn't act like any puppy she's seen. And it's growing fast. Soon animals go missing. Shadows move at night. And when her new best friend lifts a steel beam like it weighs nothing, the whole town starts asking questions. But someone already knows exactly what this puppy is, and he'll do anything to get it back. What do you do when the thing you love most was never meant to exist? You being here is a reminder. The quiet acts of love and kindness still matter. If you hold space for compassion, you're already part of this community. The autumn wind whistled through the narrow alley behind Riverside Veterinary Clinic, sending crumpled leaves dancing across the pavement. 10-year-old Hazel Brennan pulled her worn jacket tighter around her shoulders as she waited for her mother to finish with her last patient of the day. A faint sound caught her attention, something between a whimper and a chirp. "Hello?" Hazel called out softly, taking a cautious step toward the clinic's back door. There, partially hidden behind a stack of empty supply boxes, sat a soggy cardboard box. The strange sound came again, pulling her forward like an invisible thread. Peering inside, Hazel's green eyes widened. Curled up in one corner was the tiniest creature she had ever seen, with unusual silver-gray fur that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. The animal lifted its head, revealing oversized amber eyes that locked onto Hazel's face with an almost human-like awareness. "Oh my goodness," Hazel whispered, reaching down slowly. The creature didn't flinch or try to run. Instead, it made that peculiar chirping sound again, almost like a bird rather than any puppy she'd ever heard. "You must be freezing." Without hesitation, Hazel scooped up the shivering bundle and cradled it against her chest. The creature snuggled closer, seeking warmth. "Mom!" Hazel burst through the clinic's back door, her heart pounding. "Mom, come quick!" Dr. Rebecca Brennan emerged from an exam room, her tired face creasing with concern. "Hazel, what's wrong? What have you got there?" "Someone left her in a box outside," Hazel explained, her voice trembling with emotion. "She's so cold, Mom. We have to help her." Rebecca gently took the creature from her daughter's arms, her professional demeanor taking over as she examined the unusual animal. "I've never seen anything quite like this," she murmured, checking its vital signs. "The coloring is extraordinary, and these eyes—" "Can we keep her?" Hazel asked, hope blazing in her eyes. "Please?" Rebecca's face fell. "Honey, you know our situation. The apartment barely has room for us, and pet deposits are expensive. We're already stretching every dollar as it is." "But she needs us," Hazel pleaded, tears welling up in her eyes. "She needs love, Mom. We can't just leave her alone again." The creature chirped softly, as if adding its own plea to Hazel's. Rebecca looked down at the animal, then at her daughter's desperate face, and felt her resolve crumbling. She knew their budget was tight, knew their tiny apartment would feel even smaller, but something about the bond already forming between Hazel and this mysterious creature touched her heart. "We'll need to get her checked out properly," Rebecca said slowly, watching Hazel's face light up with hope. "And you'll have to help take care of her. That means feeding, cleaning up after her, everything." "I promise," Hazel exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "I'll do everything." "Thank you, Mom." She threw her arms around her mother's waist, careful not to squish the creature between them. "What are you going to name her?" Rebecca asked, smiling, despite her practical concerns. Hazel studied the silver-gray fur that seemed to glow in the fluorescent clinic lights. "Luna," she said decisively, "because she's beautiful, like the moon." That evening, in their small apartment, Hazel sat cross-legged on the living room floor, watching Luna explore her new home. The creature moved with unusual grace for something so small, investigating every corner with those intelligent amber eyes. Every few minutes, she would return to Hazel, pressing against her leg or chirping softly as if checking in. "We're going to be best friends," Hazel whispered, gently stroking Luna's silky fur. "I can feel it. You're special, aren't you?" Luna looked up at her with those knowing eyes and made a soft trilling sound that seemed to say she understood perfectly. As Hazel watched her new companion, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something extraordinary about Luna, something more than just her unusual appearance. It was like a whisper in her heart, a certainty that their finding each other wasn't just chance. It was meant to be. 3 days after Luna arrived, John Parker's chicken coop became the talk of their small Montana town. The local farmer stood in his yard, scratching his head as Sheriff Patricia Voss examined the scene. 20 chickens had vanished overnight, leaving behind nothing but scattered feathers and tufts of fur that didn't match any animal he'd ever seen. "Never seen anything like it," John muttered, kicking at the dirt. "Whatever it went right through that reinforced fence, like it wasn't even there." Sheriff Voss crouched down, studying the unusual tracks in the mud. They didn't match any predator she knew. Not wolf, not mountain lion, not bear. "We'll increase patrols in the area," she assured him, though uncertainty clouded her eyes. The next morning, Dale Morrison's prize cattle became the newest victims. The wealthy rancher stood at his fence line, his expensive boots covered in mud, as he gestured angrily at the empty pasture. His weathered face was red with fury as he confronted Sheriff Voss. "3 of my best breeding bulls, Patricia, gone. This is getting out of hand." Morrison's steel-gray hair caught the morning light as he paced. "Whatever's out there is becoming bolder. We need action before it starts threatening people." The sheriff nodded, feeling the weight of the community's eyes on her. Morrison wasn't just any rancher. His influence stretched through the county government and beyond. "I understand your concern, Dale. We're doing everything we can to track this creature." "Do more," Morrison demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to getting his way. But behind his public display of outrage, something calculated flickered in his eyes. He watched the sheriff's departing vehicle with a tight-lipped expression that suggested he knew more than he was letting on. Meanwhile, at the Brennans' apartment, Hazel sat on her bed, watching Luna with growing amazement. The tiny creature she'd found behind the clinic was already twice her original size, her silver-gray fur thicker and more lustrous. Luna's amber eyes seemed to hold an intelligence that went beyond any normal pet. "Mom!" Hazel called out. "Come look at Luna! She's growing so fast!" Dr. Rebecca Brennan entered the room, coffee mug in hand, and stopped short. "That's unusual," she said carefully, studying Luna's rapidly developing frame. "Are you sure she's eating just the food we gave her?" Before Hazel could answer, Luna's head snapped toward the window. Her ears pricked forward and a low rumble emerged from her throat. Seconds later, they heard the wail of police sirens passing on the street below. "She does that a lot," Hazel explained, running her fingers through Luna's fur. "It's like she knows things are going to happen before they do." Yesterday, she started growling right before Mrs. Jenkins from next door slipped on the ice outside. Luna was by the door before we even heard her fall. Rebecca watched as Luna returned to her calm state, those intelligent amber eyes scanning the room with an almost human-like awareness. "Hazel, honey, has Luna been doing anything else unusual?" "She understands everything I say," Hazel said proudly. "Not like regular dog understanding. She really gets it. Watch." She turned to Luna. "Can you bring me my math homework from the living room?" Luna rose gracefully and trotted out. Moments later, she returned with Hazel's math worksheet gripped carefully in her mouth, completely undamaged. Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. The creature's rapid growth, its unusual intelligence, the way it moved with such purpose, none of it fit any normal pattern of animal development she'd ever studied. That evening, the local news reported more livestock disappearances. The stories were beginning to spread beyond their small town, drawing attention they didn't need. As Rebecca watched the reports, Luna sat alertly by the window, her posture tense and watchful. The creature's size had increased noticeably even since that morning, her muscles more defined under her silvery coat. Outside their apartment, Dale Morrison sat in his expensive truck, watching the Brennans' window with narrowed eyes. His fingers drummed against the steering wheel as he observed Luna's silhouette. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "We've got a problem," he said quietly into the receiver. "The merchandise is developing faster than expected. We need to contain this situation before it gets out of hand." He paused, listening to the voice on the other end. No one suspects anything yet. They're all too busy worrying about their precious livestock. But we need to move quickly." Morrison ended the call and took one last look at the apartment window. Luna's amber eyes seemed to glow in the darkness, staring directly at his vehicle, as if she knew exactly who he was and what he represented. The wealthy rancher put his truck in drive and pulled away from the curb, his mind already working on plans to recover his valuable property before anyone discovered the truth about the mysterious creature that had found its way into Hazel Brennan's life. The spring field trip to the old lumber mill seemed like any other school outing. Hazel's class wandered through the historic building while their teacher, Mrs. Peterson, explained how the restored machinery had once helped build their town. Luna, who now stood as tall as a full-grown wolf with rippling muscles beneath her silver coat, had been allowed to come along as a special treat after the principal had witnessed her gentle nature with the children. Trevor, one of Hazel's classmates, broke away from the group to examine a stack of ancient timber beams propped against a wall. "Hey, look at these old markings," he called out excitedly. Before Mrs. Peterson could warn him away, the unstable pile shifted. The massive wooden beams crashed down with a thunderous roar. Trevor's scream pierced the air as he disappeared beneath the falling debris. "Trevor!" Hazel's heart stopped as she watched her friend vanish under the crushing weight. The other children froze in horror while Mrs. Peterson frantically dialed 911. But Luna was already moving. The silver-furred creature bounded forward with impossible speed, her amber eyes locked on the spot where Trevor had fallen. Without hesitation, she wedged herself beside a massive beam that had Trevor pinned. "Luna, be careful!" Hazel cried out. But what happened next left everyone speechless. Luna's muscles bulged beneath her coat as she positioned herself under the beam. With a deep growl that seemed to vibrate through the entire building, she began to lift. The wooden beam, easily weighing several hundred pounds, rose steadily as Luna's powerful body straightened. Trevor lay curled beneath, tears streaming down his dirty face, but very much alive. As soon as there was enough space, Mrs. Peterson and another chaperone rushed forward to pull him to safety. "Oh my God," Mrs. Peterson whispered, watching as Luna carefully lowered the beam back down. "That's impossible." Trevor, though shaken, was already sitting up. "She saved my life," he said. His voice filled with awe as Luna padded over to check on him. "She's like a superhero or something." Within hours, the story of Luna's miraculous rescue spread through their small town like wildfire. Customers at the local diner couldn't talk about anything else. Parents gathered in groups outside the school, their conversations a mix of amazement and concern. "I heard she lifted that beam like it was nothing," Sarah Miller told her friends at the grocery store. "My Jenny was there. Says that animal's not natural." "Natural or not, she saved that boy's life," Robert Chen, the hardware store owner, argued back. "Call it a miracle, I say." But not everyone shared his positive outlook. Whispered questions began circulating about what kind of creature could possess such strength. Some parents called the school board, demanding to know why a potentially dangerous animal had been allowed near their children. Dale Morrison sat in his office, watching amateur video footage of the rescue on his computer screen. The shaky phone recording clearly showed Luna's extraordinary display of strength. His fingers clenched around his coffee mug as he recognized the distinctive silver fur and powerful build. "Found you," he muttered, pausing the video on a clear shot of Luna's face. Those unique amber eyes that had cost him a fortune in genetic engineering, stared back at him from the screen. His merchandise had been right under his nose this whole time. Morrison reached for his phone, but then paused, considering his next move carefully. Direct action would draw too much attention now that the creature had become a local sensation, He'd need a more subtle approach to reclaim his property. At the Brennans' apartment, Hazel hugged Luna tight, burying her face in the thick silver fur. "You're a hero," she whispered. "Trevor's mom called to thank us about 100 times." Luna nuzzled Hazel gently, her amber eyes alert and watchful as always. She had grown even larger since the morning's events, her enhanced muscles more prominent than ever. There was no hiding her extraordinary nature now. Rebecca Brennan watched them from the doorway, worry creasing her forehead. The remarkable rescue had saved a child's life, but it had also exposed Luna's true nature to the world. Their small-town life would never be the same, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of their challenges. Dr. Rebecca Brennan couldn't sleep. The image of Luna lifting that massive beam kept playing in her mind. No normal wolf, no matter how large, should have been capable of such strength. As a veterinarian, she knew something wasn't adding up. The next morning, after Hazel left for school, Rebecca carefully collected several of Luna's shed hairs from her bed. At the clinic, she prepared the samples for DNA testing, using equipment normally reserved for identifying hereditary conditions in pets. Hours later, she stared at her computer screen in disbelief. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the tests again. But the results remained the same. Luna's genetic profile showed clear signs of extensive modification, spliced genes that shouldn't exist in any natural wolf. "Arctic wolf-based genetics," Rebecca whispered, scrolling through the data. "But these other markers, they're engineered for enhanced muscle density, accelerated growth, and—" She paused, her hand trembling slightly. "Advanced cognitive development. Someone created her in a lab." The revelation sent her diving into recent local news reports. She found what she was looking for in a small article from 3 weeks ago. A transport truck had crashed during a storm on the mountain pass just outside town. The driver had fled the scene, and the cargo manifest was mysteriously missing. Rebecca's office door opened, making her jump. "Doc, you might want to see this," said Jenny, her assistant, holding up a tablet. The screen showed a local news website with a familiar face. Dale Morrison standing in front of his ranch, discussing recent livestock losses. But it was the smaller headline below that caught Rebecca's attention. "Morrison Industries under federal investigation for suspected ties to illegal animal trading." "That's it," Rebecca breathed, pieces clicking into place. She quickly pulled up Morrison's business records, finding a maze of shell companies and suspicious overseas transactions. One subsidiary specialized in exotic animal transport, the same company that owned the crashed truck. Her phone buzzed with a text from Hazel. "Mom, Luna's gotten so big. Her head almost reaches my shoulder now." Rebecca's heart raced as she pieced together the full picture. Morrison hadn't just been trafficking exotic animals. He'd been selling genetically modified creatures to wealthy collectors and underground fighting rings. Luna must have escaped from that crashed transport truck, surviving in the wilderness until Hazel found her. The sound of heavy boots in the clinic's hallway snapped Rebecca from her thoughts. Through her office window, she glimpsed Dale Morrison himself striding toward the reception area, his expensive leather boots clicking against the linoleum. Quickly, Rebecca closed all the files and cleared her browser history. She slipped Luna's test results into her bag just as Morrison appeared in her doorway, his weathered face fixed in a practiced smile. "Dr. Brennan," he said smoothly, "I believe we need to have a conversation about that remarkable animal your daughter found." Rebecca felt her throat tighten, but kept her voice steady. "Mr. Morrison, I wasn't expecting you. The clinic's actually closed for lunch." "Oh, this won't take long," Morrison replied, closing the door behind him. "I'm just concerned about public safety. An animal with that kind of strength, well, it raises questions. Questions that could bring unwanted attention to our quiet little town." The threat in his words was clear. Rebecca stood up, squaring her shoulders. "Luna saved a child's life, Mr. Morrison. She's gentle and well-behaved." "She's also my property," Morrison said coldly, dropping his friendly facade. "That animal was part of a specialized breeding program. Very expensive, very private. I'm prepared to compensate you generously for her return." "Luna isn't property," Rebecca shot back. "She's a living creature who's bonded with my daughter, and I know exactly what kind of breeding program you're running." Morrison's eyes hardened. "Careful, doctor. Single mothers in small towns can have a hard time keeping their veterinary licenses. Accidents happen. Children get hurt." Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine, but she didn't back down. "Are you threatening my daughter, Mr. Morrison?" "I'm offering you a chance to do the smart thing," he said, moving toward the door. "Think it over, but don't take too long. That animal is worth a lot of money to certain people, and I intend to deliver." After Morrison left, Rebecca sank into her chair, her hands shaking. She pulled out her phone and called Hazel's school, asking them to keep Luna inside until she could pick them up. Then she began copying Luna's test results and Morrison's business records onto a secure drive. If Morrison wanted a fight, she would make sure the truth about his operation came to light. But first, she had to protect her daughter and the extraordinary creature who had become part of their family. The next morning, Dale Morrison's black SUV pulled up to the Brennans' modest apartment building. He stepped out wearing an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase that gleamed in the morning sun. "Miss Brennan," he called out as Rebecca walked Hazel to the school bus. "I have a proposition that could change your lives." He pulled out a checkbook, his gold pen catching the light. $500,000. Cash. For the wolf. Hazel clutched Luna's fur tighter while Rebecca stepped protectively in front of them both. "Luna's not for sale, Mr. Morrison. Not at any price." "Think about your daughter's future," Morrison pressed, his voice honey-sweet but his eyes cold. "College fund, a real house, all those things you can't provide on a vet's salary." "We're doing just fine," Rebecca replied firmly. "Now excuse us. Hazel needs to get to school." Morrison's friendly mask slipped for just a moment. "You'll regret this decision, Doctor." He was true to his word. That very afternoon, the local news website ran a headline: "Dangerous wolf hybrid threatens small-town safety." The article quoted Morrison extensively about the risks of keeping unpredictable wild animals in residential areas. By evening, the story had spread to regional television stations. Morrison appeared on camera, looking appropriately concerned in his rancher's jacket. "As someone who's worked with livestock all my life, I know how dangerous predators can be. That animal may seem tame now, but it's only a matter of time before instinct takes over." The campaign of fear spread quickly through their small town. Parents started keeping their children inside when Luna was out for walks. The grocery store owner asked Rebecca not to bring that beast near his shop anymore. Even some of Hazel's friends weren't allowed to visit. At the town council meeting that week, Morrison stood at the podium in his best suit, playing the role of concerned citizen perfectly. "We've all seen the incredible strength this animal possesses," he said, referencing Luna's rescue of Trevor. "But think about what could happen if that strength was turned against our children. We need action before tragedy strikes." Sheriff Patricia Voss, who had always been friendly with the Brennans, now looked at them with worried eyes. "We may need to consider some restrictions," she said carefully, "for public safety." Rebecca rose to defend her daughter's beloved pet. "Luna saved a child's life," she reminded everyone. "She's gentle and well-trained. The only threat here is the fear being spread by people with ulterior motives." But Morrison had done his work well. The council voted to require special permits for exotic animals within town limits, permits that Morrison's friends in the county office would make sure the Brennans couldn't obtain. Walking home that night, Rebecca and Hazel noticed people crossing the street to avoid Luna. Hazel wiped tears from her eyes. "Why are they being so mean? Luna would never hurt anyone." "Some people use fear to get what they want, sweetheart," Rebecca explained, hugging her daughter close. "Mr. Morrison wants Luna, and he's trying to scare everyone, so we'll give her up." "Never," Hazel declared, burying her face in Luna's silver fur. The wolf hybrid gently nuzzled her, amber eyes alert and protective. The pressure continued to mount. Anonymous calls complained about Luna to animal control. Signs appeared in yards. "Keep our children safe. No dangerous animals." Morrison's influence touched every corner of their small community, slowly turning their neighbors against them. At the veterinary clinic, Rebecca noticed longtime clients suddenly canceling appointments. The bank called about reviewing her business loan. Even Hazel's teacher suggested it might be better for everyone if Luna stayed home during school hours. Through it all, Morrison kept appearing with his checkbook and his practiced smile, each offer larger than the last. "You can't fight the whole town forever," he would say. "Why put your daughter through this?" But every time Hazel wrapped her arms around Luna's neck, every time those intelligent amber eyes met theirs with absolute trust and loyalty, the Brennans knew they couldn't give in. Luna wasn't just a pet or a possession. She was family. "We'll figure this out," Rebecca promised one evening, watching Hazel and Luna curled up together on their small couch. "Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone, but we're not giving up." Luna lifted her head and gave a soft whine of agreement, as if understanding every word. In just weeks, she had grown to the size of a full-grown wolf, her silver-gray coat gleaming with health despite the stress around them. Whatever Morrison and his laboratory had created, they had failed to engineer out the one thing that mattered most: Luna's capacity for love and loyalty. The black van had been parked across from their apartment for 3 days now. Rebecca noticed the men inside never seemed to eat or sleep. They just watched, their dark windows hiding their faces, but not their presence. "Stay close to Luna today," Rebecca whispered to Hazel as they prepared for school one morning. She'd spotted another man in tactical gear pretending to read a newspaper near the bus stop. "And remember what we talked about, if anything feels wrong." "Run straight to Mrs. Chen's store," Hazel finished. Their elderly neighbor was one of the few who hadn't turned against them. The surveillance became more obvious each day. Men in civilian clothes but military postures followed Hazel to school, keeping their distance but always watching. At the veterinary clinic, Rebecca caught glimpses of them photographing everyone who entered or left. Morrison maintained his concerned citizen act perfectly. He appeared on local news again, standing in front of his ranch. "As a community leader, I feel responsible for ensuring public safety," he said smoothly. "That's why I've hired private security experts to monitor the situation." Rebecca's hands shook as she turned off the TV. She knew what they really were: mercenaries hired to take Luna by force when the moment was right. The security expert's story was just another piece of Morrison's careful propaganda. The isolation grew worse. Parents pulled their children away when Hazel approached at recess. Her birthday party invitations were all declined with awkward excuses. Even their longtime mail carriers started leaving packages at the apartment office instead of coming to their door. "Why won't anyone listen?" Hazel asked one night, crying into Luna's fur. The wolf hybrid had grown massive now, her shoulders reaching Hazel's chest, but she remained gentle as she comforted her young friend. "They're believing all the lies." Rebecca sat beside them, stroking Luna's silver coat. "Sometimes people choose to believe what's easy instead of what's true," she explained. "Fear is a powerful thing." She didn't tell Hazel about the threatening notes she'd found in their mailbox or the late-night phone calls with only breathing on the other end. Instead, she focused on their safety plan. She packed emergency bags with clothes and supplies, hiding them in strategic locations. She mapped out escape routes from their apartment, the clinic, and Hazel's school. The mercenaries grew bolder. One afternoon, a muscular man in a black jacket approached Hazel directly outside the school. "Your wolf is very special," he said, with an accent she couldn't place. "Mr. Morrison just wants to make sure she's properly cared for." Before he could say more, Luna burst from behind a nearby bush where she'd been waiting, her massive form placing herself between Hazel and the stranger. The man backed away quickly, but his cold smile suggested this was only the beginning. That night, Rebecca heard boots on their fire escape. Luna's low growl warned them before the intruders could reach their window. They escaped through their pre-planned route, down the back stairs, and through Mrs. Chen's shop, while Luna's threatening snarls kept the men at bay. "We can't keep living like this," Rebecca whispered later, after they'd snuck back home. She watched Hazel finally drift off to sleep, Luna standing guard by the bed. The wolf hybrid's amber eyes seemed to glow in the darkness, alert for any threat to her family. Morrison's men had them surrounded, watching and waiting. His public campaign had turned their neighbors into unwitting accomplices, leaving them isolated and vulnerable. But as Rebecca looked at her daughter's peaceful face and the loyal creature protecting her, she knew they couldn't give up. Luna wasn't just some valuable piece of property to be bought or stolen. She was living proof that even something created for darkness could choose light instead. And the Brennans would protect her just as fiercely as she protected them, no matter what Morrison and his mercenaries planned next. The autumn sun was setting behind the mountains as Hazel ran through the dense forest, her heart pounding against her ribs. Luna's massive form moved beside her like a silver shadow through the trees. Behind them, boots crunched on fallen leaves and men shouted to each other, their voices getting closer. "There! The girl and the wolf are heading toward Miller's Ridge." A sharp voice cut through the dimming light. Morrison's mercenaries were gaining ground. Hazel's legs burned as she pushed herself harder, ducking under low branches and jumping over fallen logs. Luna could have easily outrun them all, but the loyal creature refused to leave Hazel's side, matching her slower pace. The forest grew darker with each passing minute. Hazel's foot caught on a hidden root, sending her stumbling. Luna quickly steadied her with her body, but they lost precious seconds. The sound of their pursuers grew louder. "Split up!" Morrison's voice echoed through the trees. "Box them in before they reach the high ground." Flashlight beams cut through the growing darkness, sweeping back and forth between the trees. Hazel's breath came in ragged gasps as she pushed herself forward. The ground began to slope upward, becoming steeper and more treacherous. "Luna, we have to—" Hazel's words cut off as she tripped on loose rocks. She tumbled forward, losing her balance completely. Luna lunged to catch her, but Hazel had already pitched sideways. The ground disappeared beneath her feet. Hazel's scream pierced the evening air as she plummeted into darkness. Her body slammed against rock and earth as she fell, each impact sending waves of pain through her small frame. After what felt like forever, she crashed to a stop at the bottom of a deep ravine. Pain exploded in her left leg when she tried to move. Tears streamed down her face as she realized she was trapped. The ravine walls rose high above her on both sides, too steep to climb even if she hadn't been hurt. "Luna!" she called weakly, her voice echoing off the stone walls. Far above, she heard Luna's desperate howl in response. "We've got the wolf cornered!" A man's voice carried down to where Hazel lay. "Morrison wants it taken alive. Use the tranq guns." Hazel tried to stand but collapsed with a cry of pain. Her leg was definitely broken, and her whole body felt battered and bruised. She could barely see anything in the growing darkness at the bottom of the ravine. "Well, well," Morrison's smooth voice drifted down from above. "Looks like our little game of chase is finally over." His flashlight beam found Hazel, making her squint. "Such a shame about the accident. But don't worry. Once we secure our property, we'll make sure you get proper medical attention." Hazel heard Luna snarling, followed by the sharp pop of tranquilizer guns. "No!" she screamed. "Luna, run! Please run!" More shouts erupted above as Luna apparently fought back against her attackers. The sounds of struggle moved further away, growing fainter. "Secure the perimeter!" Morrison barked. "She won't get far once those darts take effect. The girl's not going anywhere. Focus on the wolf." The voices and flashlight beams moved away, leaving Hazel alone in the darkness. The temperature was dropping rapidly now that night had fallen. She shivered, pain shooting through her injured leg with every movement. "Help," she whispered, though no one was there to hear. "Please, somebody help." But she knew help wouldn't come. Everyone in town believed Morrison's lies about Luna being dangerous. No one would even know where to look for her. Tears froze on her cheeks as the cold night air settled into the ravine. Above, she could still hear faint shouts and the occasional pop of tranquilizer guns. Luna was still fighting, still free. But how long could she last against so many armed men? Morrison had finally separated them, leaving Hazel helpless while he hunted down her beloved friend. The darkness pressed in around her as hope slipped away with each passing minute. She was trapped, injured, and freezing, while Luna faced capture alone. For the first time since finding that tiny silver pup behind the clinic, Hazel felt truly defeated. The night air filled with snarls and shouts as Luna fought against Morrison's men. Despite being hit by multiple tranquilizer darts, she showed no signs of slowing down. Her silver fur seemed to glow in the moonlight as she moved with impossible speed and strength. "What's wrong with these darts?" one mercenary yelled. "She should be down by now." Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. "Use whatever force necessary." "We can't lose this specimen." Luna's muscles rippled as she grew even larger, her enhanced genetics responding to the desperate situation. Her amber eyes blazed with intelligence and determination. With each passing moment, she seemed less like a wolf and more like something extraordinary, something designed to be the ultimate protector. The mercenary's shots went wild as Luna dodged with supernatural agility. She launched herself at the men, not to harm, but to disable, knocking weapons from their hands with precise strikes. Her movements showed careful control even in the heat of battle. "Fall back," Morrison ordered as his men retreated in panic. "Regroup and—" Luna's massive form slammed into him, pinning him against a tree. Her teeth gleamed inches from his throat, but she didn't bite. Instead, her eyes locked with his, showing not just animal fury, but conscious choice. She was choosing to spare him. Leaving Morrison trembling against the tree, Luna bounded back toward the ravine where Hazel lay injured. Her paws barely seemed to touch the ground as she moved, her enhanced muscles working with machine-like precision. Down in the ravine, Hazel huddled against the cold stone wall, her broken leg throbbing. She heard the sounds of fighting stop, and then Luna's distinctive howl, not of pain or fear, but of triumph. Moments later, Luna appeared at the edge of the ravine, her silver fur backlit by the moon. Without hesitation, she began picking her way down the steep wall, using her claws to grip the rock face. Her movements were careful but confident, defying gravity as she descended. "Luna," Hazel whispered through chattering teeth, "you came back." The massive wolf reached Hazel's side, immediately pressing close to share her warmth. Luna's amber eyes studied Hazel's injuries with almost human understanding. She gently nosed the broken leg, whining softly. "I can't climb out," Hazel said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'm sorry." Luna's response was to crouch low beside her, clearly indicating what she wanted Hazel to do. With trembling hands, Hazel grabbed handfuls of Luna's thick fur and pulled herself onto the wolf's broad back. Luna stood carefully, making sure Hazel was secure before turning to face the ravine wall. What happened next took Hazel's breath away. Luna began to climb, moving with impossible strength and precision. Her claws found perfect holds in the rock face, while her powerful muscles carried their combined weight upward as if it were nothing. Each movement was carefully calculated to avoid jostling Hazel's injuries. Hazel clung to Luna's fur, watching in amazement as they ascended. This wasn't just animal strength. This was something more. Luna had completely transformed into what she was engineered to be, a creature of extraordinary capabilities driven by unshakable loyalty and love. When they reached the top, Morrison and his men were long gone, leaving only trampled brush and discarded weapons behind. Luna carried Hazel through the forest with the same sure-footed grace, heading straight for town and help. As they moved through the moonlit trees, Hazel realized something profound. Luna hadn't just been her pet all this time. She had been her guardian, growing and evolving to protect her from both physical dangers and those who would try to tear them apart. The bond between them went far deeper than friendship. It was a connection that had awakened Luna's true nature and given her the strength to become something remarkable. Luna's fur was warm under Hazel's cheek as they made their way home. Despite her pain, Hazel felt safer than she ever had before. She knew now that nothing could break the bond between them. Not Morrison, not fear, not even the extraordinary truth of what Luna really was. The wolf moved steadily onward through the night, carrying her precious cargo with unwavering devotion, while behind them lay the scattered evidence of her transformation. Tranquilizer darts that had failed to stop her, broken restraints that couldn't hold her, and the lingering proof that love could awaken powers beyond imagination. The lights of the Brennan home glowed softly in the pre-dawn darkness as Luna carried Hazel the final few steps to their front door. Dr. Rebecca Brennan burst outside, her face streaked with tears of relief at seeing her daughter alive. "Oh my God, Hazel!" She helped ease her daughter off Luna's back, careful of the broken leg. "We need to get you to the hospital right away." "No time, Mom," Hazel gasped through gritted teeth. "Morrison will come after us. He won't stop." As if summoned by her words, the rumble of approaching vehicles cut through the quiet morning air. Headlights swept across the house, and 3 black SUVs pulled up, blocking the driveway. Morrison stepped out of the lead vehicle, his expensive boots crunching on gravel. "This ends now," he called out, his weathered face tight with anger. "That animal is my property, and I'm taking it back, one way or another." Luna moved between Morrison and the Brennans, her massive form casting a long shadow. Her silver fur bristled as she let out a low, warning growl. "You're trespassing," Rebecca said firmly, supporting Hazel. "Leave our property now." Morrison laughed, a cold sound without humor. "Your property? Everything here belongs to me now. The bank's been very interested in reviewing your mortgage, Doctor. Amazing how quickly foreclosure can happen when the right pressure is applied." Hazel's hand slipped into her jacket pocket, finding her phone. With trembling fingers, she opened the video recorder and pressed start, keeping the device partially hidden. "So, you're threatening us?" she called out, her young voice stronger than she felt. "Just like you threaten those poor animals you experiment on?" Morrison's face darkened as he stepped forward. Armed men emerged from the other vehicles, weapons raised. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, little girl. That creature is worth millions to the right buyers. Do you think I'll let some child's misplaced affection ruin years of careful breeding and genetic modification?" "Tell me more about this breeding program," Hazel said clearly, holding her phone steady despite her fear. "About how you hurt them and sell them." "Hurt them?" Morrison sneered. "I created them. Every enhanced predator, every modified species, they're all mine. The underground fighting rings alone bring in enough cash to buy this whole worthless town. And Luna?" He gestured at the wolf. "She's my masterpiece. Arctic wolf DNA spliced with experimental genetic modifications. Worth more than your mother will make in her entire pathetic career." Luna's growl deepened as Morrison took another step closer. His men spread out, forming a half-circle around the house. "The federal authorities might be interested in hearing about your masterpiece," Rebecca said, catching on to her daughter's strategy. "About all those illegal experiments and trafficking operations." Morrison's mask of control cracked. "You think anyone will believe you? I own half the judges in this state. Those animals are my property, my merchandise, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect my investment." He raised his hand, signaling his men. "Trank the wolf. Grab the girl. We'll make this look like a tragic accident. Wild animal attack, grieving mother. Such a shame." Luna's muscles tensed, ready to spring. But before anyone could move, Hazel's voice rang out. "Got it all, Mr. Morrison. Every word." She held up her phone, its screen glowing in the dim light. Morrison's face went pale as he realized what she'd done. "You little—" He lunged forward, reaching for the phone. Luna exploded into motion. Her enhanced body moved faster than seemed possible, intercepting Morrison before he could reach Hazel. She didn't attack. She didn't need to. Her massive form simply stood immovable between him and her family, amber eyes blazing with protective fury. "Shoot it!" Morrison screamed at his men. "Kill that monster!" But his mercenaries hesitated. They had just witnessed Luna's fight in the forest. None of them seemed eager to face her again. "It's over," Hazel said, her voice steady despite her pain. "I'm sending this video to everyone. The sheriff, the FBI, every news station. Everyone will know what you really are." Morrison's face contorted with rage. He pulled a concealed pistol from his jacket, aiming it at Hazel. "Give me that phone, or I swear." Luna moved like lightning. Her jaws clamped around Morrison's wrist, not biting down, just holding. One quick twist of her powerful neck, and the gun went flying. Morrison stumbled backward, falling hard onto the gravel. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights appeared on the horizon, growing closer by the second. "Your men called them," Rebecca said, nodding toward the mercenaries who were already backing away toward their vehicles. "Guess they decided prison time for assault was better than adding murder charges." Morrison scrambled to his feet, but Luna's massive form blocked his retreat. She hadn't hurt him. She didn't need to. Like Hazel, she had risen above simple violence to find a better way to protect what mattered. The first police cars pulled up as Morrison's men fled, abandoning their employer to face justice alone. Sheriff Voss stepped out, taking in the scene with sharp eyes. "Perfect timing, Sheriff," Hazel said, holding out her phone. "I have something you really need to see." Luna settled protectively beside her family as Morrison was led away in handcuffs, his empire crumbling with each new piece of evidence revealed. His final glare at the Brennans carried all the impotent rage of a man who had finally met something his money couldn't buy: the unshakable bond between a brave girl and her extraordinary guardian. The days following Morrison's arrest brought a whirlwind of activity to the small Montana town. Black SUVs with Federal Wildlife Authority markings lined the streets as agents systematically dismantled Morrison's criminal empire. The quiet community watched in amazement as more and more evidence came to light. Inside the Brennans' modest living room, Hazel sat on the couch with her leg properly cast. Luna's massive form curled protectively around her. Dr. Rebecca Brennan served coffee to two federal agents, while a wildlife specialist examined Luna with obvious fascination. "The genetic modifications are remarkable," the specialist, Dr. Sarah Chen, said as she reviewed Rebecca's original test results. "But what's even more extraordinary is how Luna's protective instincts have evolved. The bond she's formed with Hazel, it's unlike anything we've seen in modified animals." Agent Marcus Thompson nodded, sipping his coffee. "Morrison's operation went deeper than we imagined. 7 underground breeding facilities across 3 states. Dozens of genetically modified predators sold to private collectors and fighting rings. But Luna was different. She was meant to be his masterpiece," Rebecca said quietly. "Instead, she chose love over violence." Hazel wrapped her arms around Luna's thick neck. "Does this mean you're taking her away?" The room fell silent. Luna's amber eyes fixed on the federal agents, intelligent and watchful. "Actually," Agent Thompson said, pulling out an official-looking document, "that's why we're here. Given Luna's unique circumstances and the clear evidence of her protective bond, we're proposing a special arrangement." Dr. Chen smiled warmly. "We want Luna to stay with you under a new federal protection program. She'll be registered as a special service animal with Dr. Brennan as her licensed caretaker. We'll provide ongoing veterinary support and monitoring, but Luna's home will be here, with her family." Tears welled in Hazel's eyes as she hugged Luna tighter. The massive wolf hybrid gently licked her cheek, tail wagging softly against the couch. "There are conditions, of course," Agent Thompson continued. "Regular checkups, documentation of Luna's development, and participation in our wildlife protection education program. We believe Luna's story can help raise awareness about animal trafficking and conservation." Rebecca reached for the papers with trembling hands. "We'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe, to keep them both safe." 2 weeks later, the town hall was packed for a special wildlife conservation assembly. Colorful banners proclaimed "Protecting our wildlife heroes," while children clutched plush wolf toys and wore t-shirts with Luna's image. The story of the brave girl and her extraordinary guardian had captured hearts far beyond their small community. Hazel stood at the podium, her crutches set aside, with Luna beside her wearing a specially designed service vest. The silver-gray wolf sat regally, her presence both magnificent and gentle as she surveyed the crowd. "A lot of people asked me if I was scared when I found Luna," Hazel began, her clear voice carrying through the hall. "But the truth is, I was only scared of losing her. Luna taught me that being different doesn't mean being dangerous. She showed me that the strongest thing we can be is protective of those we love." In the front row, Rebecca wiped away proud tears as her daughter continued. "Mr. Morrison thought Luna was just something he could sell. He tried to make her into a weapon. But Luna chose to be a guardian instead. She protected me, and now we get to protect other animals together." Dr. Chen stepped up to join them, holding a special certificate. "Thanks to Hazel's bravery and Luna's extraordinary example, we're launching a new wildlife protection initiative. Luna will be our first ambassador, helping us teach people about respecting and protecting animals, both wild and modified." The audience erupted in applause. Luna's tail wagged gently as Hazel scratched behind her ears. "Morrison's facilities have been shut down," Dr. Chen continued. "The animals he bred are being rehabilitated in specialized sanctuaries. But Luna's case shows us something special, that with proper care and genuine love, even those bred for violence can choose a better path." Sheriff Voss stood up from her seat. "Hazel Brennan and Luna have shown us what real courage looks like. They've made our community safer, not just from criminals like Morrison, but from our own fears and prejudices." As if understanding the praise, Luna lifted her head proudly. Her amber eyes met Hazel's green ones with pure devotion. The assembly concluded with a surprise announcement. The town council had designated a new wildlife education center to be built on Morrison's seized property. Luna and Hazel would serve as special ambassadors, helping to teach visitors about wildlife protection and the importance of treating all creatures with respect. Later that evening, the Brennan family walked home together through the quiet streets. Luna padded softly beside Hazel, her service vest catching the light of the setting sun. Neighbors waved warmly from their porches. The same people who had once feared Luna now saw her as a community guardian. "You know what's funny?" Hazel said, reaching down to touch Luna's fur. "When I found her in that cardboard box, I thought I was saving her. But really, we saved each other." Rebecca smiled, watching her daughter and the extraordinary creature who had become so much more than a pet. "Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose," she said softly. Luna's gentle chirp, that same unusual sound that had first captured Hazel's heart, echoed in agreement. She pressed closer to Hazel's side, her powerful form moving with grace and gentle purpose. Together, they had transformed from outcasts into heroes, their unique bond proving that love could overcome fear, and that true protection came from the heart. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as they reached their front porch. Luna paused, her ears perking up at a distant sound. But this time, there was no danger to guard against, only the peaceful settling of their town as it prepared for evening. She relaxed, letting out a contented sigh as Hazel scratched her favorite spot behind her ears. "Ready to go home, girl?" Hazel asked. Luna's answer was a gentle nuzzle and a soft wag of her tail. She had found her true home, not in Morrison's cruel laboratories or fighting rings, but in the love of a family who saw her not as a weapon or commodity, but as a cherished guardian and friend. Thank you for watching. If even one moment stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be here tomorrow with another story that speaks to the heart.